the man who taught a bully the ultimate lesson. The streets of London were alive with their usual rhythm, horns blaring, shopkeepers calling out deals, pedestrians rushing to their destinations. It was just another day in the city, a world moving in its predictable, chaotic flow. But that rhythm was shattered in an instant. A sharp, agonized scream sliced through the noise, forcing heads to turn, conversations to halt, and footsteps to pause mid-stride. Near the entrance of a small convenience store, a teenage boy lay sprawled on the cold pavement, his face contorted in pain. His arm twisted as a sickening angle was cradled against his chest as short, panicked gasps escaped his lips. Standing over him was a thug, broad-shouldered, dressed in a half-zipped tracksuit, his knuckles cracking as he loomed over the injured teen. A black belt dangled loosely from his waist, a silent warning to anyone considering stepping in. "You think you can walk away without paying?" The thug spat, his voice dripping with contempt. "That's not how it works, kid," the teenager whimpered but didn't respond. He didn't have to. The message was already clear. He had refused to hand over money, a protection money, and this was the cost: a broken arm, public humiliation, a warning for anyone else foolish enough to resist. The street fell into a suffocating silence. People stared but remained frozen. Some averted their eyes, pretending they hadn't seen. A shopkeeper wiped the same spot on his counter over and over, avoiding eye contact. A businessman clutched his phone, debating whether to call for help and knowing it would be too late by the time anyone arrived. No one moved, until one man did. From the edge of the crowd, a lone figure stepped forward. No fanfare, no dramatic gestures, just a quiet presence that demanded attention. He wasn't dressed to impress: a dark jeans, a fitted jacket, hands casually tucked into his pockets. But there was something about the way he moved, the way his eyes locked onto the thug without hesitation, the way fear simply did not exist in his world. And when he finally spoke, his voice was calm, firm, and absolute. "That's enough." The thug turned, irritation flashing across his fascia, then amusement. He smirked, sizing up the stranger who had dared to challenge him. "And who the hell are you, old man?" The man exhaled slowly, unfazed. He took another step forward, his voice steady. "Just someone who doesn't like cowards picking on kids." The insult landed. A ripple went through the crowd. The thug's smirk faltered, his brows twitching. "Coward?" he repeated, his voice darkening. He squared his shoulders, cracking his knuckles again. "Do you even know who I am?" The man remained still, unblinking, unmoved. "I'm a black belt in Shodokan karate," the thug continued, stepping closer, towering over him. "I could drop you in 3 seconds." For the first time, the stranger moved just slightly. He rolled his shoulders back, exhaling once, then reached up and removed his jacket, folding it neatly over his arm. The air changed. The thug's grin remained, but something in his posture shifted. A hesitation so brief most wouldn't notice. But the man saw it. He always saw it. And when he finally spoke, his words weren't a threat, not a boast, just an invitation. "Then try." And in that moment, the entire street knew the real fight was about to begin. Here's the rewritten version of your story with the more immersive narrative flow. The Silent Protector, a lesson in strength. The heart of downtown London pulsed with its usual rhythmic car horns blaring, vendors shouting, pedestrians moving like a never-ending tide. It was a city of noise, motion, and routine. But then, that rhythm shattered. A sharp, agonized scream cut through the air like a blade. Conversations froze, footsteps halted, and every eye turned toward the source of the sound. Near the entrance of a small convenience store, a teenage boy lay sprawled on the pavement, his face contorted in pain. His arm was bent at a sickening angle, cradled against his chest as his breath came in short, panicked gasps. Towering over him stood a man, broad-shouldered, clad in a half-zipped tracksuit. He cracked his knuckles, his sneer dripping with contempt. A black belt hung loosely around his waist, an unspoken warning to anyone who might consider stepping in. "You think you can walk away without paying?" The thug spat. His voice was low, but the weight of menace behind it was suffocating. "That's not how it works, kid." The boy whimpered but didn't reply. He didn't have to. The message was clear: he had refused to hand over protection money, and this was the price: a broken arm, a public humiliation, a warning to anyone else who dared resist. The street fell into uneasy silence. People watched but no one moved. A shopkeeper wiped the same spot on his counter, avoiding eye contact. A businessman clutched his phone, hesitating and debating whether to call for help, knowing it would be too late by the time anyone arrived. And then, someone did move. He didn't shout. He didn't demand attention. He simply walked. Jason Statham. At first, no one recognized him. Dark jeans, a fitted jacket, hands tucked casually into his pockets. But there was something about the way he moved, the way he locked eyes with a thug without the slightest hint of hesitation. He stopped a few feet away, taking in the scene with a quiet intensity. His eyes flicked to the injured boy, then back to the man towering over him. "Oi!" His voice was calm, controlled. "That's enough." The thug turned, his expression shifting from irritation to amusement as he sized up the man who had dared to interrupt. He took in Jason's lean but solid build, the way he stood, relaxed, unshaken. He smirked. "And who the hell are you, old man?" Jason exhaled slowly through his nose. His jaw tightened slightly, but he didn't react to the insult. Instead, he took a single step forward. His voice remained level. "Just someone who doesn't like cowards picking on kids." A ripple of gasps moved through the crowd. The insult landed harder than expected. The thug's smirk faltered. His brow twitched. "Coward?" he echoed, his voice laced with menace. He took a step closer, rolling his shoulders as if warming up. "Do you even know who I am?" Jason didn't blink. "Number." The thug's nostrils flared. "I'm a black belt in Shotokan karate. I could drop you in 3 seconds." From a distance, his buddies chuckled, enjoying the show. Jason barely reacted. He slowly rolled his shoulders back and exhaled. Then, with quiet precision, he reached up and removed his jacket, folding it neatly over his arm. The air changed. The thug's smirk remained, but his posture shifted ever so slightly. A hesitation so brief that most wouldn't have noticed. Jason did. He met the thug's gaze. "Then try." The words weren't a threat. They weren't a boast. They were an invitation. The crowd instinctively took a step back. The thug's smirk stretched wider, cocky, sure of himself. He cracked his neck, shook out his arms, and then he lunged. Fast, faster than expected for his size. His right hand shot forward in a straight punch, aimed directly at Jason's face. But Jason moved, not with panic, not with wild reflexes, with precision. His left hand intercepted the thug's wrist mid-motion. In the same instant, his right arm twisted over, locking the thug's elbow and sending a sharp jolt of pain through his arm. The thug's grin vanished. Before he could react, Jason pivoted, using the man's momentum against him. 1 second later, the thug was airborne. His feet left the ground for a split second before his back slammed against the pavement. The crowd gasped. The thug grunted, dazed, his head spinning from how easily he'd been put down. His buddies, once grinning, now stood frozen, uncertain. Jason exhaled through his nose, stepping back, giving him space. He wasn't here to hurt him, not unless he had to. But the thug a broken bar, he took it as a challenge. Faced red with humiliation, he scrambled to his feet, this time dropping into a real stance. His hands were up, knees bent. Jason tilted his head slightly. Now the guy was taking it seriously. "Lucky shot," the thug growled. He lunged again, this time with a rapid-fire combo. Jab, cross, low kick. Jason didn't block. He dodged. A shift of his body, a step to the side, a precise movement of his head. Every strike missed by inches. The crowd murmured, watching as Jason barely moved but never got hit. The thug's frustration grew. He threw faster, harder, more aggressive attacks. Jason waited, watching, reading every motion like a book. And then he struck. A sharp elbow to the ribs, a quick palm to the face, a swift kick to the thigh. The thug stumbled, and then a bam. Jason swept his legs out from under him. This time, the thug stayed down, groaning. Humiliated, defeated, Jason crouched down, his voice quiet enough for only the thug to hear. "Pick on someone your own size next time." The thug clenched his jaw but didn't reply. Jason straightened, turning toward the injured teen, still cradling his arm. "Someone call an ambulance." Now people moved. A few scrambled for their phones, eager to help now that the danger was gone. The thug's friends vanished. Jason sighed, shaking his head. He picked up his neatly folded jacket and slipped it back on. Then, without a word, he turned and walked away as quietly as he had arrived. The teenager watched him go, his arm throbbing a broken bar but deep in his chest. Something else burned, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope.